Hi, everyone. I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their existing skill set. You can check it out at filmmakeru.com. Every week, we talk to a film professional to chat, give you a chance to join us and ask questions. Today, I'm being joined by Roman Hankewycz, colorist for Tiger King, Ocean's 8, Midsommar, and She's Gotta Have It, the series, and so much more. Hi, Roman. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I guess the first question I have for you is how tough was it to get through Midsommar, given the the content and how tone heavy that film is?
Um,
Was it emotionally draining?
no, no, not from the perspective of the content, but that was a really interesting movie as far as developing the look. We actually went through many iterations of ideas to get to the final, and it was sort of like a real collaborative process with myself, Joe Gawler, the DP, Pavel Pogorzelski, and Ari Aster, all sort of like ping-ponging, the look a little higher, a little better every time. So from that perspective, it was pretty exhaustive, right? We really kind of like dug into the look, and that started actually before we started the DI, which was very helpful because we had the opportunity to start developing the look. I think it was some sort of promotional content, whether it was a trailer or something. And with every time we sat down at the footage, we sort of elevated the look one more step and changed it. We were just searching for something until we found it. So from that perspective, it was really, really interesting.
So where did you start, and and I guess how did you get to where you were? So like, was there a specific look that was given to you by the director, or did you guys sit down and start working on it? And because it sounds like there was a lot of trial and error and sort of building, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Pavel and Ari came to the table with ideas. They knew that they were searching for something that was unique, and this concept of brightness and vibrancy, um, was part of the sort of assignment from the beginning. But getting to something that everybody liked took the time, and I think it really sort of like we had some photos, some ideas to emulate, and then we would do it. We would enact it, and then I would try something, and then Joe would look at what I did, and he might try something, and then I would look at what he did, and I would try something, and then the filmmakers would weigh in and say like, "That's the wrong direction," or we're on to something here, and yeah, it was a lot of trial and error, and I guess there were a few visual references, but in the end, I don't think any of those references were sort of like a template for where we ended up. But definitely, as with a lot of color work, it's just like things to inspire instead of necessarily like, I want you to match this. So from that perspective, I think Ari and Pavel brought a lot of these sort of references to the table, and then we all just sort of jammed and figured it out as we went along.
Was that experimentation like the stuff that you're talking about, where it's like they bring something, then you send it back? Did that happen before the shoot? Because it's so important to, I guess, shoot it properly to prepare for the color correction. So did that work happen beforehand?
In that project, it did not. It happened in post-production.
So in that case, how did you, like, were there limitations or anything that sort of made it harder to make the adjustments for them or make it look the way they're wanting?
No, because Pavel knew the idea of this being sort of a bright and vibrant horror movie was there from the beginning. That wasn't sort of an afterthought. So Pavel, when he shot, the way he set up the camera and everything was already meant for that sort of palette. It was just really developing the negative into what they wanted in the end that took a lot of that back and forth.
Now you've also done things like the Tiger King dog, which was interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
So how would you say color correction differs between doing something like Midsommar, which is a fiction, and something like a documentary?
Maybe most obviously, most documentaries have a good amount of sort of situational recording. So you don't really have control over your lighting situation and even the positioning of your camera and everything. So there's a lot of sort of correcting the image as opposed to just sort of enhancing or like developing an image. Yeah, and it's all fun. Like I really appreciate having the opportunity to work on documentaries and narrative content and long form, short form, because they all bring different opportunities and kind of let you flex different muscles that you then just get to parlay into your other work. So yeah, with documentary, it's a lot of work to just get to that image that you're happy presenting with controlling highlights and shadowing areas of the frame. So yeah.
But as a colorist, you're also a storyteller, and so in something like Midsommar, you're given the footage, and you can sort of say, okay, well, you want to sort of create this juxtaposition of brightness and colorful imagery with a horror film.
Mm.
In something like Tiger King, I almost feel like they're not thinking about color correction. They're just trying to get the story. So how do you work with the director to determine the story through color on something like that?
The filmmakers of Tiger King came to us to sort of like they were worried about getting everything to look cohesive and have a tone, right? So you may be right that the color doesn't tell so much of a story in all documentaries. I mean, I think documentaries are such a huge spectrum of filmmaking. So, but a lot of the focus is on maintaining consistency, right? Because you have different sources, you might have different lighting conditions, and you're just trying to make it all sort of gel. But also there was a very specific intent with this sort of like warm, maybe a little brassy sort of vibe to Tiger King that was dictated by the filmmakers. And then, you know, every time we would go through, we would just tune that look. And it may not be as explicit of a storytelling point as like for Midsommar, but you know, that's important to the filmmakers to see represented what they want, and I'm there to help them get that.
So, you know, I like to ask this question of all the colorists and cinematographers I talk to. Where do you go for inspiration? Like, do you have a book of photos and paintings and stuff, or do you go to the museums constantly, which now might be hard, but how do you, I guess, keep fresh on looks and keeping ideas in your head?
Yeah, I think there are the traditional venues for that. So like, yes, photography books and stuff like that. But now everything is like so at your fingertips with internet, but also with platforms like Instagram. I like to just go down these rabbit holes of following one profile to another and just seeing different content. And it's not just photography. It's sometimes illustrations and sketches, and also try to keep up on like tutorials. There's now millions of people offering advice out there on how to color correct. And as funny as it sounds, like I will spend a lot of time just watching through a bunch of those, because maybe there's something in there that sparks an idea that's like, oh, I never thought about using that tool that way, and let me try that out. So yeah, I mean, I love also coming across somebody's name and then just researching that photographer that I hadn't like really dug into before. And I think the internet and Instagram are huge facilitators for that kind of research. Also, I just love sort of taking pictures myself, even with my camera, with my phone. Walking around, something sort of catches your eye and you take a snapshot of it, and then you look at it on your phone and you're like, that's nothing like what I imagined it would look like. And then you start thinking, but how can it look like what I wanted it to look like? That momentary impression I had that drew me to this thing. And then you're like, okay, maybe if I bring it in and I start tweaking it a little bit and develop it into that initial idea that I had, that's a lot of fun too.
So you got to tell me, what is, I guess, one of your favorite rabbit holes that you've gone down? Because I'm always looking for a good rabbit hole.
I don't know. I don't know. I literally, I can't tell you. There are, something that comes to mind that's not really a rabbit hole, but this one profile, Anti-Modal, does some really great stuff with like messing around with images in post. And I've always sort of been struck by how crazy, like how much he does to the images and what it does. And I don't get tired of it. I don't know.
So is there a scene in your career that was really challenging, but afterwards you were really proud of the work that's come out of it? Or has, you didn't think you'd be able to achieve it, but it's something that you now show people are proud of? And
I feel like almost every project has a few things, and one of those things is like the problem scene. This, whenever we roll through it, everybody's like,
what was it in Midsummer then?
With the end of the film, there was back and forth about the tone. So it wasn't a problem scene, but it was a scene where there were, we moved this way, we moved that way, and we kind of all had to live with it for a second to see like how it felt tonally. This is the culmination of the film, and the entire film with all its exteriors are very bright and sunny, and then that end of the film is actually a little overcast. And we went back and forth a few times. Do we lean into that overcast feeling, or do we try to emulate the rest of the film with its sunniness? So that's an example of the kind of thing that has to be found. There are things where you look at it and you're like, I know what this needs to look like, and everybody agrees, and you move on, and it's just, you don't think twice. But then there are those portions of a film or a piece where you really need to weigh the different options. You need to live with it. You need to sort of like step away, come back, see how you react to it. And that was one of those, the end of the film. And also how that last shot, I don't know if you recall, but there's like a layering of images on that last shot of the main character and clouds and everything. And so like how all of that worked together definitely took a little bit of time to get everybody to say, yes, this is how this end needs to work.
Well, it's, if you need to think about anything, we're pre-recording this, so you can always cut this. We can always cut this up, so don't worry about taking time.
Oh, that's good.
But in terms of, you talked about, you know, getting that balance and getting everyone on the same page. That can be really tricky when you're working with, you know, you got a studio or a broadcaster who wants one thing, you have a director or a producer who wants another. How do you and obviously I'm not asking for like stories about this, but how do you like to work in those situations so you can, you know, be as politically, I guess, correct as possible and make sure that everyone's happy?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very important part of the job. Is you're not only there to develop the color and create consistency and tell a story through color, but you're also dealing with people and, you know, in a very sensitive position. These filmmakers, this is their baby, but there are also like monetary concerns and producing concerns, and you are also the mediator in many cases, and that takes many different shapes. Sometimes it's clear there's like one person that's the shot caller, and you just have to sort of, you know, navigate the situation so that they get their way. And other times you really have to sort of like mediate, and can we compromise? You know, is there a way to get what the producers want and what the DP wants, or what the director wants and what the DP wants? And um, that's, it's challenging. It's always different, but it's also a very important part of the process, because everybody has to be happy with the result. It's not just, you know, does it look good to a viewer, but the filmmakers and the producers, they all have to come away being happy and having left their mark on the project. So, yeah.
Now, when you got, because you also worked on She's Gotta Have It, the series. So you've worked on, you know, some of these amazing, like I think Midsommar's phenomenal visually, right? And so I think about, you've gotten to work on like Spike Lee's type content. You've got to work on Tiger King. When you were starting out, what were your hopes and dreams? Did you think you would get to this point, or were you thinking like, I'm going to be doing corporate videos for the next 40 years?
It's been a long ride. At least it seems like for me. There, it wasn't clear from the beginning that I wanted to do color. I sort of, when graduating school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to try making a career in filmmaking, but I didn't even know if that meant production or post-production. I was very sort of directionless. And I think it was just circumstantial. I got an internship at a post facility that I sort of went into post-production. But I was always drawn to the imagery, even imagery, but also sort of, I'm very technical. So as things went on, I tried becoming an editor, and I worked in sort of the visual effects or animation world for a beat. I was trying out different things, and then it really sort of grabbed me, this idea of sort of like polishing the image. And my first sort of like direction into that was being an online editor. And I really enjoyed that idea that you're at the end, and you're in charge of sort of like making sure that everything is correct, but also like enjoyable and beautiful. And that really grabbed me as a thing that I wanted to do. And then I realized that I could just work on the color part and sort of set my sights on color correction. And to answer your question, I mean, there was never any sort of guarantee that that would go anywhere. And I've just been extremely fortunate to have met people that have helped me along. Zach Tucker, Joe Galler, have really sort of given me the opportunity to grow and work on the projects that I've worked on. And I'm very thankful for that. But no, there was never any sort of like, there were always hopes, but no guarantees, right?
Now, I have one last question that I ask everyone we've been interviewing during this pandemic. You know, a lot of people are stuck indoors, and so streaming services have taken off, and there's so many streaming services now. Is there a show or a movie you discovered during the pandemic that you're like, people got to check this out?
It's sort of at the forefront of my mind because I recently saw it, but this film Luxor, I've been meaning to see it for a while, and I think it's one of those little gems that people should check out.
What's it about? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's about this woman, and she sort of takes a trip to Egypt, and she had been in Egypt, and there's a lot of like recalling of her past and sort of a romantic thread in there. But what really I appreciate about the film is that visually it gives you a sense of place. You know, it's really calm. It's not like in your face with the story, and you're just able to sort of be in this really interesting place. They even go into these historical places, you know, these places with hieroglyphics and stuff, and it's just really calming, and I feel like I was there in a weird way, and came away with it stuck with me for a few days. So that's a really cool feeling.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you.